So obviously, one of the difficult parts of this offseason will be re-signing Tee Higgins. I think we can figure it out. I think we can get it done. And I think things will work out in the end. But that's not what Duke Tobin said. So Duke Tobin said it's going to be hard. We feel like we have the resources to do it. But it all depends on how the negotiations go. And whether they're willing to accept wanting to come back at a number that makes sense for everybody. And you know what we do with T going forward. I've always been upfront in my desire to have T on our team. I have never not been upfront about that. And that desire continues. But we have to be able to come together with his representation on what that means and what the right number is for his experience, for his play time, and for his production. Now, the situation with T, right, has gotten so weird. It's changed so much over the last year or so. He's now at a point where he changed his agent from Deshaun Watson's agent to Jamar Chase's agent. Everyone clearly says they want to keep Tee Higgins. Even Joe Burrow, obviously the franchise quarterback. And yes, Joe could take a pay cut to keep Tee Higgins. It's always a possibility as well. It's a weird situation because the right number that he's going to ask for is not the right number that he should go for. Right? We talked about this the other day. Right now, they're projecting he'll get $28+ million per year. With his injury concern, you can't do that. You can't. You're looking at a $22 million a year wide receiver. 22, 23. He'll probably get 24, 25 in the end, but I think 22, 23 is where I would feel comfortable. Just because you don't know. I mean, he might not be able to, he's probably going to miss more games based on the track record. He'll probably miss more games with injury. So that's, not easy to get that structured worked out, because at the end of the day, you got to go into a meeting and say, hey, what do you think your receiver is worth A, but to us, he's worth B. And you have to meet in the middle there. And so far, they have not been able to do so. Now, changing the agent definitely helps. Changing the agent to, Jamar Chase's agent definitely changes some things. But at the end of the day, T still has a number in his head. T still wants a certain amount of money. And the Bengals have to try to figure out something that works for both parties. Yes, Joe Burrow has the ability to restructure his contract. Right now he can. Save money and put more money toward this Tee Higgins contract. But what you have to understand is, just because, let's say Joe Burrow said, hey, listen, I'll put my money toward Tee Higgins. I want him on the team. That does not mean the Bengals will budge. Because the Bengals are going to go into this negotiation, I think they have since the very beginning, with a number in their head. They say, hey, you're worth this number to us. And they're not going to change that number. Whether or not they get more or less money from Joe Burrow, most likely they're not going to change that number. The thing about the Bengals front office is they're very stubborn. They like to do things their way, and they like the philosophy that they build. Just because they could have $600 billion in their cap space, they're not going to give you more money because they have more money. They're going to give you exactly what they think that you're worth and what you're worth to them. So just keep that in mind when it comes to negotiations. Every team is different. Like the Brownies, when they negotiated for Deshaun Watson, they wanted Deshaun Watson. They said, whatever the price tag is, blank check, what do you want? When the Bengals negotiate, they say, hey, you're worth this much to us. Now, we're going to have to spend this whole time figuring out how you're going to get to that number. Like, it's not a, the Bengals are more or less like a my way or the highway type of mentality. But they know that they have to somewhat budge on some players, so they will maybe go a little bit higher up, and we'll talk about the carpool lane. They're like my way or the carpool lane way. You know, that's kind of sometimes they'll accept the carpool lane, but no more than 2 people in the car at one time, or else that's not going to count. That's kind of how it is. And again, at the end of the day, we'll have to wait to see what ends up happening. But they can negotiate with him at any time right now. And I'm sure they have started at some capacity, because once the season ends, they can work out a new contract with him. But again, as I said yesterday in the video, it's all about priorities. You have Chase is number 1. You got to get Chase's contract done. And the reason why is because you want to figure out where you're at. Once Chase's contract gets done, you know where you're at from a mathematical standpoint with the salary cap. You know, okay, I have this amount of money left of the pie. I know what I'm doing. I now can kind of work around the rest of this situation. After you get Chase's done, then you are going to have to get contracts done with Tee Higgins. Because Tee Higgins is up for free agency in around a month and a half. And then if you don't sign him, you're going to have to franchise tag him, right? So you're going to have to do that whole process again and extend that to July 22nd. And the idea would be not to have him play on the franchise tag, but to go ahead and just, work a contract out. Problem with that is, while you're doing that, you are going to be sitting with a player of $25 million fully guaranteed on your books. So again, it's like it's this idea of you have to juggle all these things at once and figure things out. And this is something the front office is going to have to really get going, because we also have BJ Hill, Mike Hilton, Mike Gesicki, all these guys also available. So yeah, it's going to be a mess. For the most part, I definitely believe that we will get this contract done with him. I think we 100% will keep him. But this is going to be another part of this nasty process. And so far, that's the best way I could explain how this process has been with T. And this is not a shot at Tee Higgins, by the way. It's not saying T did anything wrong. But this is how negotiations work. Negotiations are not, sunshines and rainbows. It's pretty much fight tooth and nail for what you believe you're worth, and then you eventually get to a point where both clubs either come to an agreement or you go somewhere else to find your worth. So it's an ugly process, but it's always an ugly process. We'll have to wait and see how it turns out. Tell me down below your thoughts, opinions. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.